So this is big. Industrial not only needs more gameplay, but we've got to get more commerce between systems. The thing that I'm most worried about here is that there's not a reason to do commerce between systems with this. Like I was saying before, they need to bolster prices. They need to get Nyx producing stuff that Stanton wants to buy so we have reasons to make these trips. But let's listen to what they have planned for the near future of cargo hauling.
Up until now, our mission system has been specific to the star system you're in, meaning a Stanton mission has to take place in the Stanton system, and a Pyro mission has to take place there. We've never been able to link these together, but with the introduction of our third star system, it's time for this to change. And that begins with the introduction of interstellar cargo.
What are you talking about today?
System-to-system hauling missions. Hauling is back.
No one said hauling was gone. You guys even play the game?
These are exactly what they say on the tin. Missions where you're going to start in, say, Stanton and end in Nyx, taking various volumes of cargo between the stations. So there'll be high volumes of cargo that kind of fulfill the purpose for the Hull C and the other series of Hull ships. And there'll be a few sort of more direct routes.
So you might pick up some cargo from Ruin Station in Pyro and go through the jump point to Stanton and drop it off there at one of the Helios.
So if you've never sort of experienced the jump point or going through it, these missions will require you to.
I feel like the flow should be Nyx to Stanton, Stanton to Pyro. Would Pyro really be the place where they're shipping back Hull C's worth of stuff? I guess if you got good mining out there.
They're no way limited. You can do them in any sort of ship you want, any size of ship. I'll be doing them in my Drake cutter myself, between Stanton and Nyx.
Just a Drake cutter.
I've got a few ships, but the Drake cutter is really cute, so.
One thing that we're looking to add with these interstellar missions is scripted combat encounters where you can be attacked by NPC ships. Maybe the mission giver has tipped off some pirates who are looking to get a hold of that cargo, as well as express missions, which means the deadline timers that you're used to in the regular hauling missions might get really tight and you've got to learn to be very fast.
All right. So this, I think, lands a little bit in contrast to their ideas behind probability volumes and quantum. Let's touch on that real quick. But listen to this explanation.
Let's take a look at how dynamic events allow encounter probabilities and interdiction frequencies to be adjusted. This is the probability volume around Port Olisar. You can see that piracy, the red curve, and security, the blue, are inversely related. All things being equal, if you increase the amount of security, you'll get less piracy and vice versa. Security tends to congregate closer to the landing facilities and dissipate as you get farther out, and thus piracy tends to gradually increase with distance. The likelihood of an encounter is represented by the height of the curve at that distance. Notice that the chances of running into a freighter, the green curve, is pretty much constant because once a ship has decided to make the journey to or from Port Olisar, it's committed. They've already decided whether or not the risk is worth the reward of traveling the full route. I'm now going to activate the lockdown phase of this event, which is going to crank up the amount of piracy in the selected area and overwhelm security. The red curve, piracy, now has a much larger average height, equating to an increased encounter probability, and because pirates now greatly outnumber security, the curve pushes in much closer to the landing zone. The criminals are emboldened because there's no longer sufficient security to deter them. The blue curve, security, looks identical, although quantum will, over time, start adjusting the economic levers to gradually increase the amount of security to combat the threat by offering greater rewards. Increased piracy has had an immediate impact, though, on freighter traffic, which has dropped precipitously. This means that the local economy will start to seize up. They won't be able to import food, medicine, fuel, or whatever else they need, and they won't be able to export whatever goods and services they produce. All of these knock-on effects are only possible because designers will now be able to nudge the economic gears in proper systemic fashion. Let's test one of these knock-on effects. Now that we've adjusted the encounter probabilities, let's see what that does to quantum travel in the area. I'm going to once again bring up a game client, this time so that we can watch an Avenger Titan jumping to Port Olisar. This is a short jump and the chances of interdiction would typically be very slim. Now that we've injected a much larger pirate presence around that location, however, that's no longer the case. We got ejected from our jump as soon as we got within range of those elevated pirate probabilities, which means that getting to Port Olisar just got a lot more difficult and time-consuming and will remain that way until the threat is addressed. We're now to the point where we can allow programmatic modification of these data structures, and Quantum will soon start adjusting these automatically so that all sorts of things within the universe start to ebb and flow. What all of this really means is that even when you know that you can buy medical supplies dirt cheap at one location and sell them for a hefty profit at another, we can finally start to adjust some of the systemic elements to justify the disparity. In short, if you wanted to take advantage of Port Olisar's elevated prices right now, you'd have to fly the last mile at conventional speeds, and we'll probably see quite a bit of combat. That's going to drive up how long it takes you to make the run. You're probably going to burn quite a bit more ammo and require more repairs than would otherwise be the case, and you might want to think about recruiting some armed escorts to help you through the dangerous areas. Once the risk abates, once players in Quanta have dispatched enough of the pirates so that travel within this area returns to normal, you'll be able to much more easily deliver medical supplies to Port Olisar, but of course that increase in supply will quickly shrink the price differential. Now let's take a look at how each server can host part of a larger event while the things that really matter can remain synchronized. I'm going to enable the war phase by calling...
All right, so we don't have to listen to all of that part of it. Now, if we go to the roadmap, I believe if I look up space-based missions, environmental space missions, we'll read here. The implementation of these missions and scenarios are ones that players will encounter as they wander around an area of space. The missions will appear based on probability volumes that the player is currently in. This was added, I believe, in Alpha 3.18, if I'm not mistaken. And it was acknowledged that probability volumes would be starting to affect Star Citizen. So probability, the volumes themselves are, according to CIG, something that have been used in the game and are not just some random thing that I think we should discredit as never coming to the game. They need to answer for this. Okay, they need to explain how are probability volumes being used in these scenarios that are so close, I think, to the cargo hauling missions that they're setting up here. Because in this one, they're saying these are going to be scripted events. They might be scripted.
Maybe the mission giver has tipped off combat encounters where you can be attacked with these interstellar missions is scripted combat encounters where you can be attacked by NPC ships.
These might be driven by probability volumes. We don't really know, but I think it is a bit of a missing link that stuff doesn't get talked about in terms of the simulation behind these things, because Star Sim is still a thing. All of this stuff is gone, just forget about it. I mean, the whole entire point of what I do is not forgetting about things that have been said. So you can tell all the other YouTubers to forget about it, but I'm gonna make sure you guys still at least have some record of the things that have been said and how those could possibly be fitting into or affecting the way we're getting deliveries. I think that we should not forget these things. We should push CIG, and we should try to keep the conversation up on a simulated verse that actually makes sense around us, that actually does the things that we would expect when an area gets more dangerous or less dangerous. If we're going to have high and low security areas in different star systems, all this stuff is relevant. So I'm hoping that we do at some point get a mention, at least, of how these things factor into Star Sim and the game overall. I think that's a really important part of being able to make interstellar missions and contracts and stuff.
As well as express missions, which means the deadline timers that you're used to in the regular hauling missions might get really tight, and you've got to learn to be very fast. All of the love and care that has gone into hauling missions so far, with the logistical network and making sure they make sense within the themes of the systems, just as much love has gone into the interstellar missions we're making now.
I hope so. I think interstellar cargo routes are really good and cool.